Tulsa, Oklahoma. It's one of the iconic scenes in the 1983 movie A Christmas Story, when the pack of Bumpus hounds from next door bursts into the Parker family kitchen and makes off with the turkey that was to be the centerpiece of the family's holiday dinner. The desecration of the bird forces the family to head for the only eatery in town that would be open on December 25. Bo Ling Chop Suey Palace, where the family is serenaded after a fashion by the waitstaff and where the presentation of the whole Peking duck, complete with the head, causes more consternation than salivation. While the Parker family's experience at Bo Ling's Chop Suey Palace in A Christmas Story was born out of desperation, for many people enjoying a meal on December 25 at an Asian eatery of some kind is as much a holiday tradition as tinseled trees and tacky sweaters. A Christmas Story tradition. Gay McCoy remembers when her husband, Tim, on their first Christmas together, insisted she take time out from her holiday preparations to watch a movie. We sat together on the couch like kids, and that was the first time I had ever seen A Christmas Story, she said. I remember the two of us laughing through the whole thing, and I kind of fell in love with the scene in the Chinese restaurant, that always just stuck in my head as something I would like to do. The couple was living in Pensacola at the time, where Tim McCoy was stationed as a Navy pilot. We were both military brats and met when our parents were stationed in Germany, McCoy said. We had one date in high school and then went our separate ways for about 30 years before we reconnected and got married. The couple's time in Florida came to an end in 2004 with Hurricane Ivan, which wiped out their home, so the couple moved to McCoy's home state of Oklahoma, where members of her family still live, and purchased a house in Jenks. However, the day after the move, Tim McCoy died unexpectedly. When Tim died, my daughter-in-law's brother and his family, Jeff and Colleen Johnson, just kind of took me in, McCoy said. I became another grandmother to the children, Savannah and Jeffrey. They call me Lulu. We started a tradition of spending Christmas Day together. She laughed, then said, and I think my children were glad about it. They probably think they see enough of me during the rest of the year. Because the holiday season is a time of sharing, McCoy shared her copy of A Christmas Story with the Johnsons. I was a little nervous about doing that because the movie meant so much to me, and I wasn't sure that they would enjoy it, she said. Fortunately, they loved it. It was a family bonding thing for them. And the next year, at Christmas, we went to P.F. Chang's for Christmas dinner. Jeff even called the manager to see if they would recreate that scene in the movie, where they bring out a Peking duck and chop the head off with a cleaver. McCoy said, he thought it would be a wonderful joke to play on me, but P.F. Chang's doesn't serve Peking duck. Instead, McCoy said, the family ordered up a feast. It looked like we'd ordered everything on the menu, there was so much food. Since then, McCoy and the Johnson family have a tradition of Christmas dinner at P.F. Chang's. And McCoy herself rewatches A Christmas Story each holiday season. It's a way for me to keep the memories alive, she said. It makes me happy. Keeping kosher. There's traditions, and then there are traditions, events that seem to have existed since time immemorial, like the tradition of Jewish people flocking to Chinese restaurants on December 25. It's a phenomenon that is annually examined by news magazines, such as The Atlantic and Newsweek, and that brought a moment of humor to the confirmation hearings of Supreme Court Justice Elena Kagan, who, when asked how she had spent Christmas Day, replied, you know, like all Jews, I was probably at a Chinese restaurant. My father used to joke that if you were moving and looking for a neighborhood with a lot of Jewish people, start counting the Chinese restaurants, said Larry Feldman, a New York City native and retired dentist who moved to Tulsa in 1983. Part of the reason was convenience. Chinese restaurants were usually the only ones open on Sundays and holidays like Christmas. I remember when I was a kid, on Sundays there would be lines almost around the block outside of Chinese restaurants. And because the Chinese don't use any kind of dairy in their cooking, he said, and they usually had a lot of vegetarian options, it meant that you had more choices if you wanted to keep kosher. Another reason, as Adam Chandler writes in his article Why Do American Jews Eat Chinese Food on Christmas?, published by The Atlantic in 2014, is one of solidarity. At the start of the 20th century, Jews and Chinese were the two largest non-Christian immigrant groups in New York City, congregating mostly in the city's Lower East Side. As Chandler writes, the two groups were linked not only by proximity, but by otherness, of being strangers in a strange land. It's very much an American Jewish tradition, but there's nothing hard and fast about it, Feldman said. We still do it occasionally, depending on what's going on. It's more of a social thing to do, meet up with people and have a meal together. The Feldman's restaurant of choice used to be the Royal Dragon, when it was in the Fontana Shopping Center at 51st Street and Memorial Drive. Royal Dragon recently closed that location, reopening a few months ago in a smaller space in South Tulsa. But the place was getting run down and had lost a lot of its ambience, Feldman said, "The place we tend to frequent now is Chopsticks. That can pose a bit of a problem, as Chopsticks, 6193 E, 61st Street, isn't open on Christmas Day. We used to be open on Christmas, but it's been about 5 years since we last did that," said the restaurant's general manager, Ekyung Luan. "I know that for the buffet restaurants it's a very busy day, but we're a small, menu-only restaurant, and we never quite had the business to justify staying open. Besides," Luan added, "we like to enjoy Christmas Day with our families, too." Memories. Togo and Mikkel Miller, Dill's family. "Thanksgiving is the big holiday, where everyone goes all out when it comes to the cooking and the feasting. Christmas is the day for lounging around in your pajamas," said Dill, who directs the musical theater program at the University of Tulsa. "And the holidays are a busy time for me, as I'm usually performing at various churches up through Christmas Day." The Dill family tradition of having Chinese food on Christmas Day began out of Laos. "It was 2003, which meant it was the first Christmas after my mother had died," Dill recalled. "So many of our memories are associated with food, and that's particularly true at the holidays. We all have memories of things our mothers made, of meals we shared, and I knew I couldn't face something that was going to bring back all those memories. We decided that the food with which we had the least in common, in terms of memories, was Chinese food," she said. Nothing about Chinese food was going to trigger any kind of bad memory. The Dills set out for Egg Roll Express, 3116 S, Yale Avenue. "We went through the drive-thru because we wanted to eat at home," Dill said. "We placed our order, and when we drove up to the window to get our food, the man there looked just like the florist who sold that man-eating plant to Seymour in the movie Little Shop of Horrors. He had the same beard, everything. And when he handed us our order, he said, 'I'm not making this up, happy holidays,'" she said. "We just looked at each other and started giggling because it was just so much like a scene from a movie. It just made everything better, somehow." They went back to the same restaurant the next year, hoping to recreate that moment. "But the person who took our order spoke perfect English," Dill said. "I guess it was one of those once-in-a-lifetime moments that happened right when it needed to. We still talk about it and laugh about it. And we still get Chinese takeout on Christmas